Hey everybody, what's up? It's Andrew Martin from Andrew Martin Energy here with your May 2019 energy transmission video. I am entitling this one, The Excavation of the True Self. I know that things are so insane right now. Things are so crazy right now and so intense right now, and there's so much chaos, and I know that it's hard to figure out from 1 minute to the next which end is up, which end is down, what's left, what's right. 1 minute I'm inspired and off on a path, and then 5 minutes later things are not interesting anymore and I don't care anymore and all I want to do is go take a nap. Who am I really? What is going on? What is my purpose? How do I find it? How do I feel versus what is everyone else going through and how are they feeling, and how do I make sense of all of this? All of this we are going to discuss and more in this month's energy transmission video, which, by the way, is the first one that is going to be released exclusively on Patreon. So if you are interested in watching this video in its entirety, you can head on over to patreon.com/AndrewMartinEnergy, where we are doing an amazing thing over there. We are building an amazing community of connected individuals who want to continue to support one another and come together with one another to do this work that we came here to do. We are on the precipice of one of the actually we're in the midst of one of the biggest transformations in the history of the human experience. And I am so excited to be sharing it with you. And that's part of what we're going to talk about in today's video. But if you're interested in the whole video and more, discounts on tickets, first in line for all event ticket sales, monthly MP3s, guided meditations, sound healing sessions, group discussions, question and answer, lots of other benefits that are yet to be discovered to being a Patreon or a patron on my Patreon page. Head on over to patreon.com/AndrewMartinEnergy and you can sign up and see all the goodness and watch the entirety of this video. Real quick before we jump into this month's transmission, I want to let you know about an event I have coming up Sunday, May 5th, this coming Sunday from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. That's West Coast time here in the US. A new event that I'm offering called Pathfinding. If you have ever watched one of my videos, and if after watching one of my videos you have ever thought to yourself, God, I wish I could talk to Andrew more about that. I wish I could ask him questions about that point or about that idea or about that information that he just shared. Gosh, I wish he could repeat that. I wish he would expand on that. I wish I could ask him more, or I wish he would elaborate on it. If you have ever found yourself wishing that we could have a live discussion about what's going on for the month, what are the themes for the month, how can we maximize this energy, how can we really connect to it and use it to our greatest benefit, then this is the event for you. It's 90 minutes of live question and answer discussion for the group. Only 50 people get to join. I'm limiting these events to 50 people because I want to make sure that it's a small enough group that we all get the closeness and the intimacy with this information that it requires. You can sign up for that starting today. And if you're a patron on Patreon, you get 50% off the ticket price. So Pathfinding is coming up. It's going to be 90 minutes of question and answer. And there will also be time at the end of the event to ask questions of a personal nature. So if you've got stuff going on personally in your life and you want to ask me about that or talk to the group about that, there will be time for that as well. Also, as always, you do get the MP3 of the recording when you sign up, and you can join from anywhere in the world. All you need is a dial tone or an internet connection. But on to that, the link for that will be in the description here, so I'll make sure that you have access to that and you can find out all about the event. But here we go. Into this month's energy transmission video. I've got my notes over here, so you may see me referring back and forth. Don't worry, I'm not distracted. I'm just making sure that I'm getting all of the information that I have for you because I've got a lot that I want to share. And honestly, I found it really, really challenging to pick a point because there's so much juicy stuff in this month's video that I just decided to throw it all in there. So, excuse me, the excavation of the real self. You know, I had this little nugget drop in the other day when I was working with a client. And as it often does, insight and information just kind of drops into my awareness like a little plink, and then off it goes. But this little nugget that I was given has been blowing my mind. And it's something that I've been sitting with for a couple of days thinking, man, this feels like a really next level kind of revolutionary idea. Is this something that I'm ready to get behind? Is this something that I'm ready to get on board with? But then today, as always, Spirit in its beautifully graceful, perfect way illustrated to me the truth of this idea through my two clients. I had a mentorship client this morning and I had an intuitive session client this afternoon, and both of them mirrored this information back to me in such beautiful, beautiful ways. You know who you are, so thank you for showing up today. And here's the T. We talk a lot about identity, right? We talk a lot about the old self and the small self and the creator self and the true self and the human self and all of this self, right? It feels like multiple personalities. And in a sense it is. But here's the truth. Relative to this idea of your true self, which when I'm talking about the true self, the creator self, the higher self, the soul self, that's the same title for all of the same thing. To me, that is the truth of who you are. The creator self is the non-physical entity that you are that chose to have the human experience. My creator self chose the experience called Andrew and has chosen many other lifetimes and will continue to choose other lifetimes. So when I'm talking about the true self, I'm talking about the creator self. I'm talking about the soul. I'm talking about the non-physical self that chose the human experience. And when we're talking about the personality or the identity or the mind or the small self or the ego, to me, that is all the same thing. And the personality is really a thought form. Andrew doesn't really exist. Andrew is a projection of consciousness from my creator self that has been called Andrew. It has been given a label of Andrew, but really in the end of it, Andrew doesn't really exist. Andrew doesn't exist any more than a role of Romeo in the Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Romeo doesn't really exist, right? Romeo is a thought form. Romeo is an idea. Romeo has a lot of traits. Romeo has a lot of facts about him. We can read the story of Romeo, and when we talk about Romeo and Juliet, everybody knows who Romeo is, but he's not real. He doesn't exist. And to further blow your mind and to take a whole other layer of this, you don't even have a body. What? Andrew, have you lost your mind? You really don't have a body. What you have, and this information, this body idea, this came from, oh God, Dr. Joe, whatever his name is. I need to start writing down my sources because I get these little nuggets of inspiration that are so relevant and so powerful, and then I forget to write down who to attribute to them. Is it Dr. Joe Espenza or whatever his name is? Anyway, I heard it from him. You don't even have a body. What you have is a collection of approximately 7 trillion cells that are each their own individual consciousness, right? We know this, that a cell is its own singular organism and holds its own intelligence and its own consciousness. And we are a collection of approximately 7 trillion of these individual cells that have agreed to come together and play a part of an organism called Andrew. But we know at the molecular level, at the quantum level, this is not a solid thing. This is an illusion of 7, billion or trillion cells, atoms and molecules and quarks and strings and all of that vibrating at the same frequency, moving in the same direction, vibrating so quickly that we're giving the illusion of this solid form that we call Andrew. But Andrew doesn't really exist. I don't even really have a body. So what the fuck am I? So here's a way to think about it. Romeo and Juliet. We're going to stick with that example. If I were to play the role of Romeo, I would step on stage. I would have my costume. I would have my makeup. I would have my wig. I would have my stage directions. I would have my lines. And I would give you a really convincing portrayal of Romeo. And then every day, after about 2 hours-ish, however long the running time of Romeo and Juliet is, I would step off the stage and I would hang up the idea, the identity, the thought form of Romeo until the next time that I stepped on stage. So in many ways, what we are really beginning to realize here and what May is all about is excavating the true self. And this is what I mean by that. There is a version of you that is already everything that you hope to be. There is a version of you that is always happy, always healthy, always thriving, always balanced, always whole, always protected and perfected. There is a version of you that is always exactly what it is and always will be. And in many ways, our job, especially in this time on the planet, our job is to excavate, to get rid of all of the stuff that we have inherited or adopted, the programming, the stories, the ideas, the stuff that has been hung on us. We have been in the process of dismantling all of that. And when you think about excavation, I want you to imagine an archaeological dig. If we suddenly stumbled across a temple in Egypt, or we found a full-fledged, Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton, we're not just going to go in there with shovels and a bulldozer and just dig it up. No, it is back-breaking, painstaking, detailed, slow, small, tiny work. We are taking paintbrushes and toothbrushes and just slowly, gently, delicately brushing away all that sand and debris. And it could take us days and weeks and months and years to fully excavate this archaeological find. And in many ways, that's what we have been doing. In many ways, all of the pain and the loss and the healing and the releasing and the surrendering and the triggers and the whatever it is that we have been doing has been in pursuit of and in honor of and in service of excavating the true self. The true self is the actor that has stepped into this role called Andrew or Joe or Betty or Susan or whatever the name is that you have chosen for this lifetime, or the name that you were given for this lifetime. In many ways, that is what the creator self does. The creator self steps into this role called Andrew. It has the experience of inhabiting Andrew, but never for a second does it ever believe that it is actually Andrew. And things start to get a little bit dicey and a little bit wonky when I continue or begin or refuse to unplug from my belief that Andrew is all it is and that's all there is, and my view is really narrow and really tiny and really constricted and really limited, but that's all I am. I'm Andrew. Nope, anything. See? So in a sense, what we really have been in the process of doing is waking up from this dream, this illusion that our human identity is who and what we really are. And that would also explain why so many people are so reluctant to do this work. And that also explains why it is so challenging and so difficult and so painful, because it is, here's the irony, it is a literal death of a metaphoric self. I'm just going to take a drink while you sit with that information. So your personality doesn't even know who you really are. Let that marinate for a minute. Your personality doesn't even know who you are. And in many ways, your personality was created almost in defense of who you really are. The personality was created almost to hide or obfuscate or cover who you really are. Because the personality is the role that you chose to play. The personality is the role you chose to inhabit, but it is not really you. Excuse me. So in many ways, what we're going through right now is kind of what, and this is attributed to my client that I had today. She said, this is sort of like a second awakening. And I thought that was such a beautiful, beautiful way to describe it. And I agree. This is in many ways a second awakening. And this is the way that I perceive it and the way that I'm going to present it to you. So in many ways, kind of up until recently, I would say up until last November of 2018, we had been going through an awakening that dealt almost primarily with or exclusively with the higher chakras, right? The heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. These are all of the chakras that deal with the non-physical realm. They're sort of the higher chakras. They deal more with the feminine aspects of ourself, right? The feminine self is the intuition, the emotion, the feeling senses, the non-physical senses. The feminine self is the self that deals with all of this watery, amorphous, sort of nebulous parts of ourself. And so we've been dealing with these feminine chakras. We've been dealing with the resurrection of the feminine self, because as we have seen, and this is no surprise to anybody, that the feminine has been denied, has been excluded, has been oppressed, has been repressed, has been suppressed. We have tried to destroy the feminine, and not just in terms of the female biological part of the species. That has been a huge part of it, but just the feminine itself. Now the feminine has awakened, the feminine has risen, the feminine has been re-anchored into our reality. And now we begin this second awakening, which we are in the midst of, which is the realm of form. The heart chakra and below deals with, so to me, the heart chakra is the bridge between the non-physical and the physical. The heart is the bridge between heaven and earth. And the lower chakras, the solar plexus, the sacrum, and the root chakra deal primarily with the realm of form and physicality, which is also the masculine. So the masculine self is the one that decides. The masculine self is the one that makes choices. The masculine self is the one that rolls up the sleeves and goes out and takes action and does. But as I have said before, the masculine action without the feminine inspiration is just the bull in the china shop waving his dick around, creating havoc and chaos and making a mess. So we are in the midst of this second awakening, which is the lower chakras, which is really, really quite an undertaking, because if you think about when we're sort of going through that initial awakening and the creator self is still sort of disembodied, for lack of a better term. Basically, the initial awakening is the creator self tapping us on the shoulder saying, hey, there's more to it than you think. Hey, what about that thing over there you've been thinking about for the past 10, 15, 20 years? Hey, is anyone home? Hey, are you really happy? Hey, do you think you can continue to do this? Hey, 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 right? So the feminine self, tap, 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 wake up, wake up, wake up, and then boom. That's when we start to have these crazy experiences. Oh my God, I'm sensing things, I'm hearing things, I'm feeling things, I'm seeing things, I'm aware of things, because all of these chakras are coming online and I'm beginning to perceive what's happening outside of, here, what's happening out there. I'm now tuning into these dimensions, this multi-dimensional layer of self. And that in and of itself is massive, right? It's a whopper, as if that weren't enough. So now we are in the midst of the physical experience, the physical awakening, the physical purge. Because the feminine self taps us on the shoulder, or the creator self taps us on the shoulder and awakens all of these higher faculties. And then we begin the process of offloading all of our stuff, healing all of our stuff, getting rid of all of our stuff to make room for the creator self to begin to descend. And that's when we get all the tingles around the chakra. That's when the ears start to ring. That's when we feel all the sensations of the pressure on the third eye and the purging of the stuff that's blocking the throat. And we go through all this weird experiences as we wake up. Now we've been doing our work so well that we have a lot of room for our creator self to begin to descend and move back into form with us, to join us in form, to join us in this time and place right here. And now we just have reached the point of our bodies and our experience where we're moving now into these physical chakras, the lower chakras. And this feels really, really scary, because now it's just not a concept of my creator self. Now it's just not an idea or a belief that I'm an infinite, powerful creator. Now I gotta live that. Now I gotta walk that talk. Now it's not just something that I read in a book or read in an article on my phone or saw on a beautiful, inspirational poster at the New Age bookstore. Now I gotta live that. Now I gotta step up and show up and grow up to meet the challenge that my creator self has set for me. And that requires me, pardon me, I have this head cold that's just like more stuff being purged. Now I got to step up and walk the walk. Now I got to say yes in a way that is real and true and authentic. Now I got to say no in a way that is real and true and authentic. Now I got to redraw boundaries. Now I got to re-examine relationships. Now I got to really begin to step forward and live the truth that I know. And here is a way that we can gauge sort of our progress. If your path is not asking you to let go of old versions of yourself, it's not leading you anywhere new. And most likely, it's probably not your path. So pay attention. If you're not being called to step up, to rise up, to expand, to move beyond, then there's either something you're not paying attention to, or somehow you kind of got your experience hijacked, maybe by the small self, maybe by the ego self, the illusory self, who's saying, oh, look, this thing over here. Just suffice it to say that if you are moving down the path and it continues to ask you to let go of old versions of yourself, that's actually a good thing. Because here's what I know. Chaos is always a sign of transformation. Chaos is evidence that I am on a bridge. A bridge from who I used to be, who I was told I am, who I believed I was, who I wanted to be, whatever. Now I have this awakening experience and the truth begins to open up within me, and now I see it, and now I feel it, and now I have to live it. I can't ignore it anymore. So now I'm on the bridge from who I used to be to who I really am, and the experience of that journey is chaotic because we know this. Nothing is ever created or destroyed, it's only transformed. I take this thing, atoms, and I call it this, and then it breaks down, and then I take those same atoms and I turn it into something else, and by the time something is in physical form, this is already old news. It's, this phone started to deteriorate and decay the minute it came off the assembly line. My body is constantly, shedding old cells and debris and renewing them and rebuilding them. So there's probably some kid who was just recently born on the other side of the world who's got, DNA and cells as part of its makeup that used to be part of my arm, right? To think of it in this way, we really have to begin to accept the fact that we are all one. Just like the body is 7 trillion cells acting as an organism called Andrew, we are 8 billion collective individual souls who have come together to create this organism called humanity. We are rewriting our experience from the inside out. My energy field is a combination of my thoughts, my beliefs, my energy, my body, my vibrations. It's all of that. And my energy field is what interfaces with the field of potential. So whatever I've got going on in here creates almost a key, right? It creates a shape. There is a structure. There is a geometry to energy. And when I've got whatever I have active within me, it is creating a shape which interfaces with the field of potential that we live in, right? This mess of electrons and protons and neutrons and photons and whatever, croutons, I don't know. It interfaces with the reality, and that is what creates my experience. So as I change my inner working, as I reshape my cells, by changing my beliefs and offloading my old history and my stories and healing my trauma and my wounds, I literally change the shape of my cells and my structure, which in turn changes the field and the shape of my energy field, which in turn changes how the world responds to me. So by changing myself, I change how I interface with reality. And by changing how I interface with reality, I change my reality. Here's the tea. And this is really, really going to help you for the rest of your life, really. But especially as we proceed through the next couple of years, because shit's going to continue to get bonkers until about 2022. So, get used to it. But here's the tea. It's not about control. It's about transformation. Here's what I mean. I think at some point down the line, we kind of got manifestation, this idea of manifestation, we began to conflate that with control. And what I mean by that is when I look at my life and I go, well, I don't have enough money, or I don't like my body, or I don't like my relationship, or I don't like my job, or I don't like my house, or I don't like whatever, or I don't see the things I need, right? We react to our environment and we say, well, I don't have enough money, so I need to manifest money. I don't have a boyfriend, so I need to manifest a boyfriend. I don't have this, so I need to manifest it. We have essentially turned manifestation into a club that we use to beat down anything that we don't like. We have mistaken this idea of manifestation to be something that I can sort of force and bend and make my reality give me what I want. Manifestation is not a control mechanism, my friends. You can't use manifestation to change something just because you don't like it or you don't want to deal with it. This is all old news anyway. Are we starting to get this yet? By the time something shows up in my physical experience, it's already dead weight. So why on earth would I be spending all of my time and energy and effort to recreate something that's already dead? Here's how you do it. You can't control your external reality. I want you to understand that. You cannot control your external reality. Control is an illusion. But what you can do is create internal shifts. And these internal shifts, in turn, change how you interface with your reality, and which in turn, changing how you interface with your reality, transforms your external reality. So if you want to change your life, if you don't like what you see out here, stop focusing on manifestation, stop focusing on control, and focus on transformation. Focus on rewriting this, focusing on getting clear and true and finding that truth and rooting into it, because your truth, only you know what truth feels like, and your truth is a sacred place. Your truth is a temple. Your truth is the place where everything that you require is available to you right now. Your truth is the eye of the storm. And in the eye of the storm, I'm not affected by all the chaos. In the eye of the storm, my truth is always there. That stillness and that silence is always there. In the midst of all the chaos that I can observe around me in the eye of the storm, here I am. So excavating the real self requires us to continue to show up in service of what we know to be true right now. It requires us to show up in service of what we know to be true at this moment in this time. It's not about my history. It's not about who I thought I was. It's not about who I've been told I was. It's not even about regurgitating the stories of all that I have overcome, because all that does is keep them active. This is about understanding that chaos means I'm in the midst of transformation, and the biggest transformation that is happening right now is the creator self is descending into the physical form, which is changing everything. And now anything that is the slightest deviation from my truth feels so much more pronounced and so much bigger and so much louder and so much more uncomfortable, because the creator self is right there with us saying, nah, dude, this is not going to fly. That is not true. That is not real. And the way that you know that is by how uncomfortable you feel. And I'm not talking about the discomfort of leaving the comfort zone. I'm not talking about the discomfort of, oh my God, I'm getting ready to make a big change and I'm nervous. That's natural. Change is going to cause always a little bit of anxiety. What I'm talking about is the thinking about doing something or starting to do something or moving in a direction, and there's the, oh God, no, that feels horrible. That feels awful. That makes me sick to my stomach. That makes me feel like 100-pound weight was just set on my shoulders. That makes my head hurt, my face hurt, and I want to curl up in a ball and die. I don't like this. This is not for me. I don't feel safe. I don't feel healthy. I don't feel valued. I don't feel loved. I don't feel compassion. I don't feel included. All of those things, that is evidence that you are moving against yourself. So you gotta take the time to get still and get quiet. You gotta take the time to find that inner place. You gotta take the time to cultivate and nurture your own sense of what is true for you, because that is where you find that connection. That door to the temple is where you meet your creator self. The door to the temple is where you go when you need the clarity and you need the answers and you need a moment of stillness and silence and quiet, and you just gotta get your head on straight. Because personality is just a thought form. And your personality doesn't even know who you really are. And you don't even really have a body. You have a bunch of cells that have agreed to hang out in a shape of a body for the duration of your life, but they're malleable, they're reformable. They're reshapeable. And they're in the midst of doing that right now. These energies that are streaming into the planet right now are causing physical changes in our biology. So here are some ways that I'm going to give you to help navigate this month and beyond. And the reason that I have chosen this topic as the first one to offer up on Patreon is because this is the foundation for a lot of the work that we are going to do. If you have not yet grasped the idea that you are not your human self, that you are in fact the non-physical creator self that chose your human experience and decided to call itself you so that you could have the experience of being that, if you don't yet quite understand that, then nothing else is going to matter. And if you are not willing to begin the work, if you are not willing to step forward and find that stillness and learn how to cultivate and use your tools and do your work, then nothing else matters. Because if you aren't even aware of the basic fundamentals of who and what you really are, and if you don't know how to find that truth, that's fine. That's what I'm here for. But the reason I have chosen this video as the first one for the Patreon series, and moving forward, we're going to build on top of this one, is that this is the basis for everything. You have to believe that there is more to who you are than this much of what the mind can see. Because if I am only living my life through the mind, through the construct of my logic and my reason, thinking that, oh, I'm the big man in charge of my life, and look at, no, you're not. You're not. You're not at all. No more than Romeo is in charge of the actor that is playing him. Because if you believe that living through the mind is showing you the whole picture, that's like looking through the keyhole thinking that you see everything. You really don't. You see less than 1%. So here are some things to help you begin to understand this, to also move through this month and really the next few years. This first one, get a pen and paper, so we're going to start to write stuff down. This first one came from one of my mentorship clients this morning. She's an amazing, wonderful person. Today was our last session today, and it was so fucking fabulous to see all the change and the growth and the expansion that she went through. And she emailed this to me, and I love this. This is such a beautiful message and such a beautiful tool. What seems alarming is really only temporary discomfort. The mind is like on high alert right now. The personality self is like so on edge and so amped up. You know, everything is, oh my God, it's like we're just so on the verge of a panic attack all of the time because we don't know, the mind doesn't know what to do with this discomfort. The mind doesn't understand what's happening. The mind is watching everything that it has experienced fall away. Everything that it has known is true. Everything that it has known is like its security, blanket and its safety zone is gone. And so anytime there's anything that makes us a little bit uncomfortable, we freak out. The mind freaks out. It's not alarming. It's not 911, oh my God, crisis. It's just temporary discomfort. So breathe. Take a minute, close your eyes, and go back to that place inside. Find that inner connection. Find that home base. Find that truth. And breathe from there. Create from there, move from there, act from there. Here's the next one. Stop trying to carve yourself away. Stop trying to soften your rough edges so that you can fit in. Stop trying to be someone that you're not. This is really where we are at this moment in time, is that we can't fake it anymore. Faking it is excruciating. Faking it is depleting. Faking it is just sucking the life out of you. So be who you are. Be who you are. And you don't have to broadcast it right away, right? I get it. It's going to take some time to get comfortable, but you start the work of discovering who and what you really are, and you invite that self in. You create a space for that to emerge. And yeah, it's intense and it's crazy and it's a lot, but it's worth it. Because on the other side of that is liberation, is freedom. And speaking of liberation and freedom, here's the next one. Liberty demands a sacrifice. And that sacrifice is the comfort zone. If you want to live really, truly free, you gotta stop fucking pretending that you're someone that you're not. You gotta stop apologizing for who and what you really are. You gotta find a way to get okay with that, in spite, oftentimes, of what everyone else is telling you. Only you know what truth feels like, and the sooner that you tune into that and get to know it, the sooner things are gonna start to transform for you. Here's another one. When you're finding yourself overwhelmed and the mind is panicking and maybe you're getting ready to make a big change, like my client was getting ready to, she'd left her apartment and she's just going to be a bit of a wanderer this summer, and she's going to kind of just figure it out as she goes along, and she's got a long-term goal, and she starts to think about it, and the mind's like, but who, and then what, and then where are we going to do that, and then how are we going to do that, and then why does this happen, and what about that? And the mind it's like a barrage of questions, and we get so overwhelmed and we just want to shut down. So when the mind, how are you going to do that, Andrew? What's that going to do? Oh, that's a really stupid choice. Why are you doing that? Here's your response. These are all really interesting questions. Wow, mind, thank you for that. That's a really interesting question. And? There is no and. Because here's the next one. If you live the experience, the understanding will arrive. This is no longer about sitting down and going, okay, I'm going to do this at 21, and then at 22, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go left over here at the yellow house, and then at 30, I'm going to do this. I'm like, okay, I got the plan. Okay, now I can go. No, girl. You got to do it. You got to just move. You got to make a choice. You got to make a decision. You got to trust the impulse that's moving through you. Listen to that. Listen to that voice that whispers, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? And when you just show up and live the experience, when you meet the experience where it is, when you allow your experience to be whatever it is in the moment, that's what opens up a space for understanding. But how are you going to know what the cake tastes like until you fucking bake it? Here's the next one. And this is a big one. You are not creating a path. The path already exists. What you're doing is you're allowing yourself to experience the intersection of the path and where it has been taking you. And sometimes the path takes you to a place where you feel lost. Sometimes the path takes you to a place where you feel stuck. And in the moments when you feel lost and stuck, that is where it is your prerogative to say, whoa, stop, wait a minute. I need to get right with myself. I need to go inside. I need to look at some things. I need to tune into some things and ask some questions. Because here's the thing. This isn't about answers. This has never been about answers. This is about asking new questions. And until your priorities change, until you really begin to live from the truth that you are this infinite, powerful creator who chose to be here so that you could be a part of making history as we redefine what it means to be human. If you don't believe that, where can you go from there? If that's not something that you really are truly embracing and understanding, where can you go from there? So we gotta accept that. We gotta own that. The path already exists. You're just here to walk it, to embody it, to journey it, to allow yourself to be present. And when you get to a place where nothing makes sense, and when you get to a place where you're confused and you're lost and you're stuck, that's the time to stop, to go within, and to take an inventory. What does my human need right now? What is going on? Do I need to allow myself this experience of emotion? Do I need to release something? Is this a time for me to sort of go up to my observer's perch and to view things through the bird's eye view so I can go, oh, okay, cool, I get context now. And now I can come back and have my human experience. Whatever it is that you need, it is always here in the present moment. Whatever it is that you require, it is always here in the present moment. So when your path takes you to a place where you feel lost or stuck, just trust that you've been given an opportunity to slow things down. And what is it? It's not a block. It's not a barrier, it's a stepping stone. So when you come to a place in the path where you feel stuck and lost and there's no way around it, there's no way under it, there's no way over it, there's no way through it, when you're looking at your experience and you are confounded by your reality, that is evidence that the choices are being made from a higher perspective that you just don't have access to at the moment. And as you do the work to release, reaffirm, unravel, untangle, heal, shift, whatever it is that is asking for this attention, once I get right with that, then, now it makes sense because now I'm on top of the stepping stone, right? I have disabused myself of the belief that this is a block or that I'm stuck or that this is a barrier, and I have taken the opportunity to do my work and sit with whatever I need to sit with, and bingo, there we go. Now the knowing opens up. And the understanding opens up. Pretty good stuff, huh? So here's the thing, and I'm going to leave you with this. As we were talking about earlier about the eye of the storm, and the eye of the storm is where we have access to that safety and that security and that sanctity of our experience. When we access that higher place, which is found through the eye of the storm, when my vibration raises, which really only ever happens when I'm in that connected place, because that connected place requires me to be in the moment, right? And freaking out about the future or stressing out about the past, immediately, whoop, my vibration goes down. When I am able to be in that place, my vibration raises naturally. And when I can allow my vibration to rise, now I can see things. I can see things more clearly, and I'm pulling from the truth, and I'm in the moment. So I have access to all my gifts, and I have access to all my tools, and I have access to all my insight and guidance. And when my vibration is rising, when I am working and vibrating at a higher frequency, then the chaos and the craziness and the implosions and explosions and all of the drama, I'm not as affected by it because I don't need it anymore. When I'm asleep, I need drama to wake me up so that I can remember how powerful I am. Once I'm awake, once I am moving from and living in and creating from that higher perspective, now I know the truth and the drama does not affect me as much. It doesn't affect me as directly. Things get dicey. Here's the thing. Things get dicey when I am trying to hang out in the thought form of the personality. Because just like when I agreed to play Romeo, when I step into the thought form of Romeo, now I am beholden and bound by the rules of the story. I am bound by the tragic arc of Romeo. I am bound by the laws and the rules of Padua. I think it was Padua that Romeo and Juliet lived in. I am bound by the tropes of, William Shakespeare, whoever. When I am inhabiting and embodying a thought form, a role, a character, I am bound by the rules of that character and the world that the character lives in. So here's the thing. When I am hanging out in the thought form, when I'm hiding in the thought form of the personality, when I'm trying to find those old behaviors and those old patterns and those old beliefs because they're more comfortable, because they're safe, and I wasn't happy, but at least I understood them, right? The victim is an easy thing for me to play because I've been doing it my whole life and I don't have to think about it. I can disempower myself like that. Well, when I hide out in the thought form of the personality, then I have to play by the rules of the personality, because the personality is the one in charge. This is the Matrix. This is the Wizard of Oz, right? Girl, you had the power the whole time. You've been wearing those ruby slippers since you got here. Neo, you've always been the one. So when I know that I am the one, when I know that I am eternal and infinite, and then I know that I chose the experience of Andrew, now I get to come and go at will. Now I get to show up in the Matrix and stop some bullets and bend some spoons and do all this, right? Now I get to click my heels and go home, but then I can always come back and hang out with the cowardly lion and the scarecrow or whatever, right? So when I am hiding out in the thought form of my personality and my history and my past, I am bound by the limitations of that realm. But when I know that I am not Romeo, that I just get to play him for a brief period of time, now I get to show up with all of my gifts, with all of my skills, and I can do whatever the hell I want. Because I don't live in this realm anymore. I am not bound by the personality. The personality is not my master because the personality doesn't exist. It is a temporary construct that was created so that I could have the experience of Andrew. And now that I know what was going on behind the scenes, now I can show up and have fun because I don't really think that I am Romeo. Now I know that I get to play him, and that's when it gets exciting. That's when it's liberation. That's when it's freedom, because I know that I get to hang up that Romeo character and leave when it's done. So this month, begin to question what you believe is real and what you believe is true. Begin to question those old narratives and those old stories. And begin to push back a little bit. And remember that when you feel uncomfortable, it's just temporary. And whatever makes the ego uncomfortable is usually really, really good for the soul. So that, my friends, is May. Thank you so much for watching. AndrewMartin.energy is my website. You can go there to read all about my sessions that I offer. Patreon.com/AndrewMartinEnergy. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are all Andrew Martin Energy. You can donate. If you go to my website, you'll see a donation button there, donation page if you are so inclined to support me. If you want to watch all of these videos every single month and be part of this amazing community that we are building, head on over to my Patreon and subscribe. I hope to see you at the event this coming Sunday the 5th, where we are going to open up these topics and these subjects and have a real, live, honest, true discussion about all of these concepts. And until then, you're not who you think you are. You're not who you've been told you are. You are who you really are. You are who you have always been. You are what you will always be. Mwah! I love you. Thank you for tuning in. Cannot wait to see what's next. I'll talk to you soon.